Gamers, today we're gonna be doing the most urgent and emergent emergency tier list I've ever done in my life. Now, this is an October tier list, but it's October 31st at 10:51 p.m. So we're about to hit November. That's why this is so urgent, and I hope you understand the severity of it. But it will be uploaded on November 1st, so it is what it is. So we just had a long mall chat with the chat, and now I'll give you guys my opinion on the civilizations for this patch. Mind you, the patch has been out for a week and a half, of which I have taken like 3-4 days off, so I have like a week of playtime in this patch. But I'm kind of, I feel like I understand the meta pretty well enough to see what's going to be good, what's going to be bad, and so on and so forth. But having that in mind, a lot of this stuff might be not 100% correct because the patch is still so new. So some things in the order of the civs might change, but this is just my impression of which civs are good. And obviously, as always, no gold players were harmed in making this video. And this is, in my opinion, for high level play. And some people will disagree with it, some people will agree, and that's okay. So before I get into this is probably the biggest patch we've ever had in terms of how many things were changed. What you need to know is siege is very bad, ranged units very strong, cavalry very strong, infantry is still pretty good in feudal and castle, but it severely drops off in imperial, whereas your cavalry and archers and ranged units scale really well into the late game because of the new university upgrades. With that being said, I'm gonna make a tier list based on what I think is good, not only in like feudal age, just kind of overall what feels very, very strong. And with that being said, I don't know if this is a surprise to anyone, but when you have a patch that massively buffs range units and English has longbows, English is also not a civ that uses a lot of siege, or in the past that didn't use a lot of siege. They used actually springolds to kill the enemy mangonels because they usually have heavy range comps. So now that the mangonels are basically not in the game, the range units are really strong, and longbows can kill mangonels as well. So you don't even need cavalry as English, you can just make some men-at-arms. You can make cavalry if you want to, but in general you just need some kind of front line so your range units do damage. It's very good. It's still very good in feudal. We haven't had as many balance changes civ to civ, and I don't think English received any balance changes if I remember correctly, except the new university stuff. And English has access to Ribaldequins, which are very good. They do get countered by range units, but they're also a siege that hasn't been kind of touched for what it does. And trebuchets, which are now a lot better because the springolds are not anti-siege anymore. Trebuchets are a lot better, and English trebuchets do AOE damage when you upgrade them, so that makes them very good. And also it's a big wind guard buff because of the rangers. They have a lot of range. The next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be I'm just gonna put H3 straight away. H3 has received massive nerfs, but I actually still think it's S tier. And the reason for that is, so they received multiple nerfs, right? The elite army tactics has been nerfed, where it doesn't give 20% HP anymore, which is pretty big for H3 because they're heavy infantry civ. They have received nerf where the relic emplacements for towers and stuff like that have been nerfed quite a bit. But I still feel they're pretty good. And then last, which is probably the biggest nerf that they received, was the chapel range nerf from 7, I think it was 7 to 6 or 7.5 to 6.5, something like that, which basically removes the third layer of farms around your chapel. So in Imperial, I think you have 15-16 farms less in the range of chapel, which is quite 7.5 to 6.5. Yeah, thank you. Having 15-16 farms less around chapel is quite a big deal, but also in feudal age your chapel has a lot less range, so you got to be more careful where you're putting it. But even with all that, I personally still think H3 is S tier. It might move to A tier, so I'm also gonna give predictions of what I think might change or if it will change. Like, for example, I think English is gonna stay here. I can see H3 moving down to A tier because of so many nerfs, but the Chapel I think is just really, really good. And all the games that I've played, yeah, it's noticeable, but like having less farms under a Chapel in Imperial is not that big of a deal because you always had too much food as HRE, and then in Feudal, it is impactful, but not that much to where it's like, ooh, it's not a top civ anymore. So that's just my opinion, but it might move to A tier. We will see. In my opinion, the absolute worst civ right now in the game for 1 versus 1 gameplay is Order of the Dragon. So all the nerfs that HRE got, OTD got as well, which is hilarious because I don't think OTD needed any nerfs, but all the emplacement nerfs and the Chapel nerf also hit OTD. I don't know why, but they received nerfs where at the top level they were never ever ever picked. The only time where you could see them being picked at the top level is water maps in drafts, not on ladder. And now the Chapel is nerfed for them, so I feel like even they're pretty bad. Yeah, I just don't think OTD is that good. One of the great things about OTD, you know, there wasn't a lot of great things, but one of the great things about OTD is because your units are so expensive, it actually made a lot of sense to make Siege as OTD, like Culverins and Bombards and Mangonels, because they were same supply as the other civs. So instead of them being double supply, they're same supply as the other civs, so you could kind of get some value there. And now with the Siege nerfs, I think Siege nerfs impacted both HRE and OTD negatively, which is why I can see HRE going down to A tier, because a lot of the fast Imperial rushes with HRE and OTD were defended by Culverins and then some towers, but both of those things are now changed / nerfed. So maybe the fast Imperial HRE style is not going to be a thing. The next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be, it's moving up. And that civilization is going straight to C tier, with the potential it going into B tier in the next patch. I don't think it's going to be higher than that, but it might move up. Now this is Ottoman is the most interesting civ in terms of balance right now, because it's super buffed and it's super nerfed. So the Siege being nerfed as much as it is, Ottoman is now a lot worse. But Ottoman also received a rework of the Vizier point system, so there's actually more points that you can take, and it might become the meta for Ottoman to go for not the Siege landmark, but to go for the other landmark that gives you more experience and unlocks 3 more points for your Vizier thing. I can see that becoming the meta. It's not something I have tested, but after I actually had a game today where I went with the Mehmed Armory, whatever it's called, landmark where it produces Siege, and it produced like 4 Mangonels, and I think they killed a total of 2 units. I haven't tried putting it on Springles and producing Springles, but I can imagine they're both pretty bad. So maybe the meta with Ottoman will be the Vizier point landmark, because there's a lot more Vizier points you can unlock. A lot of people ask me what I think about their horse archers. Their horse archers are very good. The problem that I have had is I can never seem to find a good place to actually make them. So what I mean by that is, if I go like feudal fighting, by the time I unlock horse archers, the game has kind of moved on from that point where I'm either killing my opponent or I have to age up because the opponent aged up, right? So then it's like, okay, well now I'm in castle, so why would I make horse archers when I can make knights or janissaries, right? Same thing, if I'm going 2TC fast castle or just fast castle, why would I make horse archers when I can make knights or janissaries and so on and so forth? So you kind of get the point. They're a very good unit, but I feel like they always arrive too late in order to make a big impact. I haven't had games in Imperial where you could mass them. I am assuming they're pretty good. So with the Siege being nerfed, big Siege for Ottoman, including the Great Bombard, has also been nerfed, right? But another reason why I'm not sure if it's a C tier or a B tier is what's keeping Ottoman from the top level, I think, is their economy is very, very slow. This is something that's been a problem with Ottoman for a while. They produce their military schools very slow. The military schools take a very long time to pay off. So as a civ, it has a very slow tempo, and most of the other civs will kind of win on that. But now when you reach Imperial, you usually made Sipahi and Janissaries, and well, one of the units that is spammed heavily into the late game is cavalry. So even though Janissaries received a nerf, they're still very good against cavalry. And then Sipahi, because the biology upgrade has been buffed, Sipahi are even better. And if the enemy even attempts to make siege, you have the easiest time killing sieges Ottoman because of Sipahi range. So right now I would say it's a C tier for competitive level. Maybe it's going to get buffed or moved up to B tier, just because of how strong Sipahi feel in this current meta. But as of right now, I'm going to put him here, and we'll see what happens. Like I said, it's kind of a mixed bag. It's like siege is nerfed, but their other units are buffed. So I'm not sure which one kind of prevails in the end, because Ottoman was heavily reliant on great bombards and heavily reliant on having mangonels in castle for free, basically, right? So that's it. The next civilization we'll be talking about, we might be moving some around, but I'm just gonna slap both French and JD right here. The reason I think it's B tier, I think in the last tier list I might have put them B tier already. I think the cock playstyle is still good with the traders. JD has been, I mean, it is a buff. I personally don't think it changes anything. So they made Jean's champions available from barracks and stables. I personally don't think you're going to see crazy amounts of them. I might be wrong. But I still think they're both solid civs. And again, range units have been buffed, and cavalry units, and both French and JD mass knights and crossbows and horsemen in Imperial. So their biology is also obviously really strong. Their crossbows are the best crossbows in the game. French is not a civ that was very, very reliant on siege units to play the game. Their cannons are obviously stronger versions of bombards, and yeah, I think they're okay. They're not OP. They're not bad. They're there, and they're, you know, trying their best. Now the interesting thing is, which I don't think developers considered, but after all the siege changes, if you go for the Royal Artillery or Royal Academy, whatever the landmark is called, you actually have Ribaldequins, cannons, and culverins, which cannon and a culverin is the same unit now. Culverin has a bit more range, less damage, and then bombard/cannon has more damage but less range. So that landmark is in a very weird spot where if you make it, you can make Ribaldequins or culverins, but culverins are also basically cannons now. So it's, yeah, school of artillery, yeah. So it's a bit of a weird one there. All right, next one. We'll be talking about Rus, and I think this patch unironically turned out pretty good for Rus. And the reason for that is, I feel like a lot of, I think like Rus might be back. And the reason for that is, I feel like a lot of the civs that were very good against Rus have received some kind of nerfs. And also Rus pretty much never ever go for like mass infantry in the late game. You do make spearmen or men-at-arms in, you know, feudal castle, but I feel like your ultimate comp is gonna be knights, because they are the best knights in the game, and it's gonna be Streltsy. Now Streltsy are in a weird spot where they are hand cannoneers, but they're a lot better hand cannoneers in my opinion, especially in the new patch, because if they don't move, I think for like 10 seconds, they get 30% attack speed. If you're fighting whatever units you're fighting, mass Streltsy will do really, really, really well. And if you mix in some knights, because they have, the biology has been buffed, and also Rus has an upgrade for their knights to or cavalry to further increase their health, they have a really good front line. Rus was reliant on siege quite a bit, right? Because they had the high armory landmark where you could get, you know, extra range for your springolds, you can get better rams, you can get the upgrade for the mangonels don't need to set up. and then your bombards dealt extra damage. Well, even though, like I said, Rus was reliant on siege, the thing that Rus was most reliant, I feel, was on rams. Like, their rams are crazy good, but that hasn't changed. Rams are the same. Now, the funny thing is, you did used to make mangonels, but you don't need to make mangonels now because other civs don't have them, so your Streltsy will trade really, really well. And then you have bombards, which actually have a unique upgrade in high armor that increases their damage against infantry and increases their overall damage by 20%. So your bombards actually one-shot infantry. So if you have really good micro with Rus, you can take a bombard and shift-click onto the enemy, like hand cannoneers or archers or crossbows or whatever, and then they will just mow them down one by one. And if you have few bombards, you can do that, and you can clear up infantry pretty fast. So while this patches nerf siege heavily, and even though Rus was very much into siege, I don't think it's as bad as it is for example, HRE. All the games that I've had so far with Rus, I felt pretty good. It felt pretty comfortable. I think also one thing I forgot to mention is the food income or food upgrade for farming and sheep has been nerfed. But because Rus now pretty much always reaches level 3 bounty, your food gathering rate is actually still very, very good and among some of the best in the game. So that change has not impacted Rus as much. Next one we will be talking about is going to be I'll throw Mongol in here. Mongol was very reliant on siege. I mean, they have an upgrade that literally makes your units be able to make siege on the field, like mangonels and springolds, and that has been butchered. So you know the pushes you were able to do with Mongols where you make like a couple of towers and you make like 2-3 trebuchets and you make mangonels and you make springolds and you just kind of siege their base? Yeah, that doesn't exist anymore. So that's pretty bad for Mongol. I still wouldn't put him under Ottoman because I think Mongol has a lot better tempo. But going into Imperial, the fact that cavalry is buffed is good for Mongol because of Kashyyyks, and they use Kashyyyks quite a bit. They also use Mangudai, so Mangudai have more HP. It's overall a good patch for their range units, but I think Mongol has, beside this patch, it has a lot of other problems in Imperial, you know, lack of walls, lack of keeps, that while all those things are buffed for Imperial Age, Mongol is not good in Imperial. So I would say they have really good tempo early on, but you probably want to be ending games very, very quickly with Mongol and not, you know, go super, super long. Next one we'll be talking about is going to be Byzantine, and I'm gonna just slap it into S tier. Byzantine received 5 wood nerf on their farms, so their farms are now 75 wood like every other civ. The horticulture upgrade has been nerfed a bit, but it is very, very strong civ, and Byzantine is a very funny one. It's very similar to Ottoman, where it's like every nerf and every buff has impacted positively and negatively on Byzantine. And that is because of mercenaries. So you have the cavalry buff, which not this last patch, but the patch before buffed cataphracts. And cataphracts have actually been used a lot more in the recent matches because they have same movement speed as knights. So cataphracts have been used a lot more. So the fact that cavalry has more HP from biology is great for Byzantines, because if you go cataphracts, they got even more. I think they got something like 524 health in Imperial. Someone can correct me on that, but I know they have like crazy high number on cataphracts. Now, Byzantine is actually not a civ that was reliant on siege, okay? Byzantine was a civ that relied on massing units and having different mercenaries. Not a civ that necessarily went for mangonels or springolds or anything like that. They just kind of tried to overwhelm. So this was overall, for that side, very good for them. Now, the Varangian guards obviously suffered quite a lot because of the elite army tactics being nerfed. But the range units got buffed, which means that longbows that Byzantine gets are very, very good. So they kind of have same longbows as English. So when you upgrade the silk bowstring, whatever the upgrade is called, they will get massive range and they can actually kill siege. So you have Byzantine, one of the only 2 civs that can massively outrange mangonels and deal with siege with longbows. So that's number 1. Number 2, one of the most broken units in the patch right now are elephants. And Byzantine can make those too. They can make the melephants, which are the melee elephants, and the ranged elephants, which are very, very strong right now, which I'm going to talk in a little bit about. So Byzantine kind of received a farm nerf, horticulture upgrade nerf, but then on the other side, ranged unit buffed, cataphracts are buffed, siege is nerfed, which doesn't affect them. So I feel like they got everything affected that they have in the game, but I think overall when you combine everything and do the maths, it's pretty good for them. Next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be, we have a new contender for S tier. And the reason why Delhi is S tier now is simply because devs fucked up. So Delhi has been, I think, A tier for me for a very long time. It's been A tier for probably 2 years straight, right? It was just not S tier, but it's always really good. You always want to pick it. It's very good. It's very high pressure, but it always lacked that little bit of something. So, not in the last patch, but in the patch before, the elephants got buffed. If you guys remember, where the melephants do AOE damage. They do cleave damage in front. Now, I would say that still made elephants or Delhi like A+ maybe. Well, now because the elite army tactics has been nerfed, the infantry has been nerfed, and these elephants have received buff. People have been, getting used to playing more and more with elephants. Not only that, but siege has reduced damage. So siege base damage used to be higher, like bombard, and right now that has been removed, right? Hand cannoneers chemistry does not work against anything except melee infantry. So hand cannoneers got nerfed, bombards damage base got nerfed, spearmen got nerfed, and those are the 3 things that countered elephants. So right now in the game, there's actually no effective counter against elephants, especially the melee elephants. So melee elephants will actually just kill everything, cost for cost. Like, they will be very, very valuable and very, very cost efficient. I've had a game a few days ago where I had 6 cannons as a Byzantine shooting at the elephants and just taking like 20 shots to kill one or something ridiculous. Then again, hand cannoneers don't have chemistry anymore, so they do like 20% damage less than they used to. Spearmen will actually just disintegrate against elephants. So elephants are very good, and yeah, elephants have high range armor. So my advice, yeah, crossbows. So elephants, I think fully upgraded have 12. Is it 12 range armor? So, which means the crossbow does like 12 to 15 damage to it, something like that. Elephants have like 1,200 health, so I think this is a serious and big oversight by developers, because yeah, there is no counter to elephants right now. 1.3k health, great. There is no counter. Like, every unit has a counter. If you make this, you win. The game that I'm talking about, my army comp was pure Limitanei with cannons, like French cannons, because I played Byzantine, and I lost the game because I couldn't kill elephants, and I had like 80 Limitanei just constantly producing, and I still lost. So if you meet Delhi and they reach Imperial, good luck to you. Abuse it while you can, because ain't no way this shit is gonna stay in the game, okay? Ain't no way. The next civilization we'll be talking about is China. And oh boy. Oh boy. I had one of the games of all time today. And let me tell you, China feels very weird. I'm gonna say I think China will be okay, but I'm gonna have to kick it out of A rank for now. I'm gonna have to give it a B+. Now let me explain why. China is not necessarily bad right now. It might be still A tier, but I'm gonna put it B+. I can't put it with these three. But if you're playing China, I strongly advise you stay away from the siege until at least Imperial. And I think China might turn into a civilization that... So, you know how you could play China like Fast Castle, Knights, Nest of Bees, or 2TC into Fast Castle and then Nest of Bees and Spearmen? Nest of Bees are very bad compared to what they used to be, right? Very, very bad. So, China will evolve into two different playstyles, and I am 99% sure about this. The only question is if it's going to be like a B+ or an A tier Civ. It just played completely different. So, the way it's going to be played is either Fast Castle into Knights, where you play it kind of like a Knight Civ, and then you transition into like Knight Crossbow or Horseman Crossbow, something like that, where it's like a normie Civ. Or you can play it like 2 Town Center and just mass infantry. Like I'm talking like fucking 50 Spear and 80 Zuginu, right? Because Nest of Bees is butchered, but so have Mangonels. So, which means that effectively your mass Zuginu or mass crossbow in China doesn't really have a counter, right? It doesn't really have splash AoE counter. And China is one of these like Zerg civilizations that can produce batshit amounts of units very quickly. And their economy can pop off quite quickly. Realistically, China will turn into just mass unit civilization, very similar to Malian. Very, very similar to Malian. And that's probably how it's going to be played. So this whole thing where you play China with like Spearman, Crossbow, Nest of Bees, you know, move on. Move on, Grandpa. That shit's dead. Nest of Bees are not good. Feel free to try it, but they're very bad right now. In Imperial, I'm not sure. In Castle, pretty bad. So I think to the point where I actually think it's pointless to make the Cockwork Tower landmark. I think what is it called? The Imperial Palace. The Age 3 landmark that gives you a lot of vision. I think that's the landmark that is probably going to become the meta now because the siege is that awful. But I can see also China, you know, being A tier. Just right now I'm going to put it here because I am not 100% sure. Now a new entry. And I think we haven't had this Civ up there in a while, but I'm going to give Zhu Xi a quick and easy A tier with the possibility, watch this, with the possibility in the future of reaching S tier. I think Zhu Xi is very strong right now. Very, very strong. In fact, Zhu Xi was the mass spamming units of China, right? China used to be defensive siege, infantry plus siege. Zhu Xi used to be like mass palace guards, mass spearmen, mass Zuginu, stuff like that. And it was actually very annoying when you play Zhu Xi to go into siege because your siege is shit, because it's not clockwork siege. So I think Zhu Xi right now has a lot of playstyles, which makes it, in my opinion, a very good Civ. You can do 2TC, Fast Castle, Zuginu all-in. Now they received multiple buffs. I actually think that the siege being nerfed is probably good for Zhu Xi Legacy, even though they had access to Nest of Bees, just because it didn't really fit into the whole style of how it was played at the high level. They got a new buff, which makes their cavalry attack 20% faster, which cavalry got buffed, right? Biology got buffed, so all cavalry has more HP, which means that Imperial Guards, which are their Imperial Cavalry, becomes a lot stronger because not only they have 10% extra HP from biology, now they have 20% attack speed, and one of their landmarks that I don't know the name of can also activate 20% damage for your Imperial Guards. So your Imperial Guards are actually really strong. And on top of that, Spearmen have been nerfed because of a lack of elite army tactics. So they're very tanky, very strong, and they do a fuck ton of damage. I have not tested yet how good their bombards are with the AoE attack in one-on-one. That upgrade used to be trash for one-on-one because if you wanted AoE, you would just make Nest of Bees. But because Nest of Bees is now nerfed, I am not sure, but there might be a chance where the Bombard AoE attack might be good for Zhu Xi Legacy, especially because you can activate +1 range on it, so you can also snipe the enemy siege if needed, right? And another thing that I forgot to mention, another buff they received is their Grenadiers are available in Castle. They also have an upgrade that when they throw the grenade, all the units that get hit, they take, I think, 15% more damage from everything. Which, when you play Zhu Xi now, you want to mix in a few Grenadiers always with your army. So, I think all these things coming, all the changes that happened in the last patch, to combine with Zhu Xi Legacy just straight up buffs, I think make it a lot better Civ than it used to be. So for me, it's A tier. I can also see it it being S tier. You know, in a few weeks, I can see it going up for sure. Next civilization we'll be talking about is going to be, I'm going to put Ayyubid in B+. To be fair, I am not sure where Ayyubid goes right now. It has received nerfs in the past. The siege nerfs definitely affected them in a negative way, because you used to have a lot of good timings with like opening a lot of camel lancers and making some archers or crossbows. And is that a new patch or are you guys linking the old patch? A new patch? Oh my god. Wait, this is an emergency patch now. Okay, hold on. We have emergency patch. Okay, I'm just gonna check this quickly. Okay, let me see if this changes something. Guys, emergency patch. Oh my god. We have never had emergency tier list and emergency patch. This is crazy. Do you see how emergent this tier list was? By the way, we didn't know about this patch coming. Okay, let's see. This is an emergent patch. It says right here, emergent patch. You trust me. We're gonna cover it right now. Based on your feedback, we brought the period to require pause time for a player's first pause back to 30 seconds. So they nerfed the pause. They nerfed the pause. I heard people are abusing this pausing in team games, by the way. Like pausing like dicks and stuff like that. That makes sense. Fixed an issue that caused players to become stuck in multiplayer pause menu after the match completed. Okay, this is a bug. And now you get 3 pauses instead of 5. Love that. I think it's good. I've seen a lot of people complain about that. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. General changes. Fixed 2 crashes related to full moon mode. Where is fixed the crash when hovering over the fucking UI? Why is that not fixed yet? It still exists. It's been 10,000 years. How hard is it? They fixed this shit after like 5 days. It's been 2 years since the UI crashes. Where is the fix? I can't. Balance changes. I'm actually shocked they did this patch, by the way. I don't know if it's being patched right now or when is this patch. I have no idea. Sealed bowstrings. Range improvement for archers. Reduced from 2 to 1.5. Who would have thought that giving longbows fucking million range and archers is a bit OP? You can download right now? Okay. Sealed bowstrings, range improvement for mounted archers reduced. So this upgrade just got straight up nerfed. Love that. I personally haven't played enough games to where this was a problem. Like, I haven't got that many Imperial games where we're both just massing ranged units. But when you give ranged units more range, it's not going to lead to good things. Mangonel bonus damage versus range increased from 8 to 10. Increased Mangonel and STB's range armor from 80 to 85%. Okay, I just want to say something. So for you guys watching on YouTube, I molded about how bad Siege is an hour ago. I just want to say, for everyone in the chat, I had nothing to do with this, okay? I had nothing to do with this. I was not aware this patch was coming, okay? If I did know it was coming, I wouldn't have molded. Do I think this is gonna fix the siege problem? I don't know. Because Nest of Bees are the same, right? Their damage hasn't been changed. And manual damage is increased, but you still gotta land a shot. You know what I mean? You know what this is equivalent to? If you're like trying to score like a 3-pointer from half a field in basketball, and then they make the hoop just a bit bigger, you still gotta hit it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, technically, yeah, you're getting help to get the ball in, but you still gotta throw from half the field and actually hit it. So, while this is a buff, you still gotta hit the mangonel shot. So, I don't know. I would have to see it in game to see how big it is. And this is gonna make them more tankier against ranged units. Reboltequin health reduced. Oh, wow. Wait, Republicans got nerfed? Okay. I mean, I'm shocked that they're doing a patch. Like I said, I don't think anyone in the council from the top players knew about this patch. I am very happy that they're willing to make changes this fast. But I'm trying to think. Probably a step in the right direction, but I don't know if this is enough. Like, there's going to be some fine-tuning needed. Like, we need to get to a spot where mangonels are good, but not too good because they don't have Springold counter anymore. And that's going to be a pretty rough one. That's gonna be a pretty rough one, and I'm not sure how to balance that, and that's why I'm not a dev. But because basically, let's say the mangonels are really good now. I don't think this is gonna make them really good. This makes them better. But let's say they make them really good, then how do you counter them? Then we're back to siege meta, right? Why is the patch 6.3 gigabytes? Well, it's because they gotta load up the mangonel shots. Like, they gotta add from 8 to 10. So they gotta bring in a lot of stone. That's why it's so heavy on the patch. Yeah, I don't know. Wow. Emergency patch during the emergency tier list. That's a first for me. So credit where credit's due. Is this gonna fix Siege to become better? No, I don't think so. I think pretty much everything I've said for the tier list remains. But it's a step in the right direction, you know. All the ranged civs with ranged units, they still got more range than we used to have. So, yeah, a shout out to devs. Alright, let's go back to the tier list. I'm trying to think. I'm a bit distracted. I'm trying to think, does anything change? I don't think so. Longbows still got extra range. Even without the upgrade, they can kill mangonels, right? Now their range is reduced a bit. I mean, who cares? It's like, okay, cool. They still got a lot of range. You know what I mean? Not even OTD? No. Let's continue. The next civilization we will be talking about is going to be, it's moving upwards. And it's Malian. This patch was crazy good for Malian. And I'm gonna tell you why. Malians are mass unit civ. They don't give a shit about siege. You don't want to be making... If you're making mangonels as Malian, you're very far behind. The only siege Malian made was Springolds to kill the mangonels. And even then, you didn't need Springolds to kill mangonels because you win with mass units. Cavalry got buffed, so their scouts and their sofas are now buffed. Melee did get nerfed, right? So the Mass Musafati Warrior and Sofa and Scout in the late game is nerfed. But the trade-off to that is you get Bombards, aka Culverins, that have extra range compared to normal Bombards. You get Keeps that you can actually hold positions with Malian very easily because you are the one with more units than your opponent. Always. As Malian, you will always have more units. Which any kind of camping or interaction with Trebuchets versus Keeps, Bombards versus Keeps, you should have an upper hand with Malian because you have stealthed units, you have a lot of cavalry, and you can do really well with it. Next thing, your archers are... I mean, I don't count longbows into archers. Longbows are longbows. Your archers are the best archers in the game, and they got Silk Bowstrings upgrade, which increases their range, so that's very good. And Malian, while their hand cannoneers are good, and they were made, you didn't really rely on hand cannoneers as much as some of the other civs did. Now, the interesting part is, you know how hand cannoneers don't get chemistry anymore? Well, Malian hand cannoneers do like 100 damage when they come out of stealth. And if you have Fort of the Huntress Landmark, it increases their damage coming out of stealth. I think it's over 100 damage. So, while other hand cannoneers have no chemistry, and Malian has no chemistry anymore than hand cannoneers, they will still have that first strike from stealth. So they're still going to do a lot more damage than other civs would with hand cannoneers. Next civilization is Japanese, and I am going to put... Honestly, I don't know where to put Japanese, okay? This is probably the biggest question mark for me, and I'm going to explain why. There's too many things that happen in this patch, and I feel like I haven't played enough against Japanese, and I haven't played enough Japanese. So, I'm going to just add a new thing here. And I'm going to just call it I don't know. And this is a world first. I genuinely don't know. If I had to put it somewhere, I would probably put it in B tier. But I can see it going up. And I'm going to explain why. So, the patch is great for Japanese because Japanese does not use siege. That's like their thing. They don't use siege at all. And I'll explain why. They work in mass units like Malian. So any civ that works with mass units, you can quickly surround the enemy, kill the siege. Making Mongols before doesn't make sense against Japanese because they have mostly melee units, right? You never actually made Mongols or Springles as Japanese because of the things I just said. And then Bombard, you never made it because of Ozutsu, right? So from siege point of view, this is great for Japanese. From infantry point of view, they got cucked. Now, what actually got cucked pretty hard is the spearmen and the samurai. The elite army tactics, they don't have 20% HP. They lost that. But Ona Bugeisha actually gained health in the last patch. I think they got 10 extra health. So Ona Bugeisha and Imperial actually not bad at all. And they're very cheap and they're very cost efficient, right? So Ona Bugeisha, in a way, received a buff because now they have more melee armor and they have received health. So their elite army tactic nerf is not as bad. So that's number one. But samurais are nerfed. And samurais are very good against other infantry units, which we're not going to see a lot of in the upcoming months, weeks, right? Let's move on to the next thing. Cavalry. Well, Japanese cavalry is very, very strong. Mounted samurai and horsemen, right? So they received an HP buff, which is very good, but the meta is not really around mounted samurai much. So that might change. Now, Onamushas, which are the ranged crossbows, are cavalry, so they just received biology buff 10% HP, which is nice. And, last but not least, one of the most interesting changes is Japanese used to play with Mass Samurai plus Ozutsu, okay? Japanese didn't really play a lot with Hand Cannoneers, so the Hand Cannoneer nerf doesn't affect them too much. But the interesting thing is, and this is a big question mark for me, Ozutsu now kind of do a lot of things for Japanese that other civs don't have. So Ozutsu is an infantry that's basically acts like a bombard, right? They have obviously a lot less range, but you can mass them and they can quickly come, pop down to keep, so you don't actually need bombards at all, still. Now, why are they good? Well, Ozutsu did lose chemistry, but so did every other that type of unit, Hand Cannoneer. But they also do splash damage, which is very, very important here, because all the splash damage that is in the game, next to Beast Mangonels, has been nerfed. Ozutsu have not been touched. While their AoE is smaller, you can make a lot more of them. And because of that, Ozutsu are now better. Nothing happened, but they're better, right? So for all those reasons, I don't really know where Japanese is right now, and I need to play it more. I would guess it would be CB, B plus tier, somewhere around there. Maybe the meta develops to where they're a lot better. Maybe the meta is going to be something weird like Mass Ona Bugeisha and Ona Musha. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. Obviously, Japanese still suffers from like having bad feudal. So, yeah. And last but not least, we have Abbasid. And there it is. What a civ. It's world first Abbasid tier. I hate this civ. If you guys remember my peak mold about Byzantine, I can't. Now, you might think, well, didn't Abbasid receive massive nerfs because they used to make siege of the field? Yeah, nobody plays like that anymore. Yeah, nobody does that shit anymore. So, it doesn't matter. Abbasid right now is at a point where, again, I know there's some Joe in gold like, Abbasid is not that. Shut up! It's broken. At the top level, it is so easy to play Abbasid. The amount of like buffs they've received over time is crazy. Now, the Eco Wing specifically is just batshit insane, and I think Abbasid just needs nerfs, like, ASAP. And I don't mean, like, English can get nerfed by nerfing, like, university upgrades. This civ just needs nerfs. Abbasid, not Abbasid base style or whatever. Just Abbasid needs nerfs, okay? So, the funny thing is, biology buffs their horsemen. It buffs their camel riders, which are very good in Imperial, and it buffs their camel archers. The bowstring upgrade gives them extra range to camel archers. So their camel archers, which are already crazy, now also have more range. And I've actually been playing Abbasid, and I don't even make barracks anymore. You just make mass horsemen, camel archers into like camel riders, camel archers, and it's very, very good. The patch things that have happened, if this was old Abbasid style, I think that it would be pretty big hits to Abbasid. But because of the, not the last patch, but I think the patch before, all the changes that Abbasid has received with like buffing Eco Wing and all that, just pushed it like over the edge. Like their TC, second TC can be made so fast and it's so cheap that I just think it's crazy. Like I've had games against top players where they go 2 TC, I go 4 TC, and not only I survived 4 TC versus 2, but I actually killed them very shortly after. Which is, it shouldn't happen, right? If you go for more economic play than your opponent should have more army or more tech. That makes sense. But because Abbasid economy is so good because of fresh foodstuffs in Golden Age, not only you have more economy, not only you have more villagers, more upgrades, but you also have more army somehow. So, yeah, I think Abbasid can be nerfed in many, many ways. Devs can literally just pick one. You know what I mean? One of the very, very strong things about Abbasid is the fact that you don't use villagers while aging up. And you kind of spend your resources to age up, but then you don't spend any resources aging up, right? So for other civs, you invest 1,200 food for age up and 600 gold, but you also invest another 1,000 resources to make the landmark, right? Let's say 1,000 resources. Abbasid doesn't have that. So not only their economy is stronger because of Golden Age, but you also have more resources because you're not aging up with your villagers. Yeah, fresh foodstuffs I think is too insane. The Fertile Crescent Eco Wing upgrade is too crazy. Golden Age is too crazy. The fact they don't use villagers to age up is crazy. I think any of those things, if the devs hit them right in the nuts, that's going to be good. And I'm going to love that. And I think everyone will. Yeah, I think, Ayyubid gets 10% from Golden Age. Abbasid gets 15% for some reason. I don't know why that is. But that is going to be my tier list. Again, I can see Atri moving down. I can see Malian perhaps moving up. I can see Zhu Xi Legacy moving up. I can see China moving up a little bit. Ayyubid, not 100% sure. I think French, JD, and Mongol are there. Ottoman maybe moves up a little bit. Japanese, don't know. OTD, sucks. And that is going to be it, ladies and gentlemen. We got an emergency Civ tier list and emergency patch update as well. Once again, if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had a good time over here, this tier list. And once again, this is not intended for gold level gameplay, only for top level players. Thank you. Thank you. Twitch gamers, let's keep going.